Hotel room, 12th floor, by Norman MacCaig. Here is the poem. This morning I watched from here a helicopter skirting like a damaged insect, the Empire State Building, that jumbo-sized dentist drill, and landing on the roof of the Pan Am skyscraper. But now midnight has come in from foreign places. Its uncivilized darkness is shot at by 1,000,000 lit windows, all ups and acrosses. But midnight is not so easily defeated. I lie in bed between a radio and a television set and hear the wildest of war whoops continually ululating through the glittering canyons and gulches. Police cars and ambulances racing to the broken bones, the harsh screaming from cold water flats, the blood glazed on the sidewalks. The frontier is never somewhere else, and no stockades can keep the midnight out. Here is a look in detail at the first verse. Here is a detailed look at the second verse. And here is the last verse or stanza, a very short verse. Here are some key ideas emerging from the poem. And here is an explanation of the word ululating. Here are some questions that you can return to. Now, let's look at the poem in detail. So at first it's called Hotel Room, which is very anonymous, but we recognise New York right away through the Empire State Building. So what have we got? We have this morning, which gives us a sense of immediacy in the first line. We have a simile with the helicopter skirting like a damaged insect. So the helicopter is being compared to a damaged insect, giving us a sense of scale. The fact that it appears tiny from the view from the window. Straight away, MacCaig is showing us the differences between man-made structures and the world of nature. The Empire State Building is called a jumbo-sized dentist drill. This is a metaphor. Some people find this quite humorous and amusing, but also the dentist is commonly associated with the idea of being an unpleasant visit, associated with pain. So straight away, MacCaig is identifying this massive landmark with the idea of pain and suffering. Through this, the message or theme emerges that our big shining cities may not be all they're made out to be. So rather than being impressed by this building, MacCaig is critical of this ostentatious symbol of wealth. As mentioned in the first line, this is during the day, and we'll see that MacCaig takes us through to the evening in the city. So he signposts this by saying midnight has now come in from foreign places. We have some enjambment, that means where the line is deliberately broken. So we have come in and then a pause and then from foreign places, and this gap or pause instantly helps us to picture darkness descending over the city. But it's not just darkness, it's uncivilised darkness, and we have brutal language with the word choice of the word shot at, and we have the idea of a battleground in the city, and we have this image of the pattern of the windows being lit up, all ups and acrosses. And this could either suggest the idea of a crossword when you're trying to work out the meaning of something. Maybe MacCaig or the speaker of the poem is trying to read the city, or he maybe feels that the city is undecipherable or hard to read in some way. Or it could also be the idea that it represents the image of a cross in this battle between good and evil. So to say that MacCaig is unimpressed by New York City would be a complete understatement. He is concerned with the differences in the ostentatious wealth with the ordinary people, and here we will see the way that he starts to think about the ordinary people and the sounds of the city at night. So by now we can see that the speaker is feeling very disturbed, and we've got a switch here in verse 2 to focus on the sounds of the city. So the first stanza or verse was very visual, and now we can see that Norman MacCaig, or the speaker of the poem, is lying in bed, sandwiched between two pieces of gadgetry, a radio and a TV set, still unable to drown out the sounds of the city that he hears down below. Perhaps he feels fearful, thinking about the crime down below, but what he does in a brilliant way is he compares this to the idea of the Wild West. So we have the wildest of war whoops continually ululating through the glittering canyons and gulches. There's a lot going on here. So we're thinking about the Wild West, we're thinking about old-fashioned cowboy movies, battles between cowboys and Native American Indians. We have the sounds representing the sort of stereotypical battle cries made by Native American Indians, and the sirens from the ambulances sound like this. So MacCaig is evoking ideas from the past in America, and he's challenging the idea that they now think that they are better and civilised, and he feels that modern day America has a new battleground, the crime down in the streets down below outside his fancy hotel room. And he brings this beautiful image of the glittering canyons and gulches. This is a metaphor to describe the city, skyscrapers and sidewalks. So the canyons represent the skyscrapers and the gulches represent the sidewalks. In this way, he's evoking an image of nature, but challenging the idea that this society has not improved, that the city is not an improvement on nature. And of course, because the buildings are built up so high and so tight in cities, and the land being so much in demand, there's a lot of shadow in the streets, a lot of darkness even in the daytime, and MacCaig is really questioning whether this is a better way of life, compared to nature. Almost like a camera moving down to the ground level, we now think about the source of these noises. So we have the police cars and ambulances racing, and here we have the people. But rather than being described as people, they're reduced to broken bones, harsh screaming. Broken bones and harsh screaming are examples of synecdoche, where a person is reduced to the part. For example, business people, a businessman or a businesswoman just being called a suit is another example. So it's not a person with a broken bone here, it's just broken bones. It's not a person screaming, it's just the screaming. And in that way, the people are being dehumanised or depersonalised, and MacCaig is doing this to show that for the police cars and ambulances, it's just another call out, just another problem to deal with, and that we're often very unaware of what has actually happened to the person, the source of the noise or the source of the accident. And of course, where there's poverty, there's crime, and where there's crime, there's poverty. So he goes on to look at the idea of poverty with this amazing condensed word, cold water flats. What he's saying there is that these people are living in poverty, there is no running hot water, and he's merged these words together to give emphasis and focus in a very cleverly short and direct way with cold water flats. And here we have an interesting image with the blood glazed on sidewalks, the idea that it's a thin veneer on the surface of the streets, suggesting that this violence or the threat of violence is always there, just simmering under the surface. People might feel that the city looks beautiful by day, but they're unaware of the crime by night. Throughout the poem, Norman MacCaig has developed a theme, the idea that civilization is not as perfect as it may appear, the idea that we often think that as years progress, people improve and society improves. So when MacCaig talked about the Wild West, many people in America would believe that they had improved from then. So MacCaig is really suggesting that we don't really behave in a civilized way all the time. He's suggesting that civilization can be a fallacy, it can be false. And then he comes to query or question the idea of borders, frontiers, barricades. So here we have the frontier is never somewhere else, and no stockades can keep the midnight out. So a frontier is an ever-expanding area of land, like an undefined border. Frontiers in America, again, we would think about the Wild West, so this links back to the wildest of war whoops. The idea in America was that when settlers first arrived, they arrived in the east, but they gradually moved further and further west and claimed new land. So the frontier was the new territory that they were claiming. And the idea of a stockade is these were traditional wooden structures that were used for defence, and they were used when white Americans were battling against Native American Indians, and they would create these fortress areas. So again, MacCaig is evoking the idea of ancient battles and questioning whether America is truly the civilised place that we think it is, and indeed whether modern day cities are the civilised places that we often assume they are. And he ends on a negative note with the idea that no matter what we do, no matter how civilised we think we are, we cannot keep the midnight out. And midnight is equated with the idea of savagery, the opposite of progress, and MacCaig believes that mankind cannot really tame evil and cannot really tame all people. And he's questioning whether we really are as perfect as we like to think we are. Here are some more detailed ideas. So what you could think about is, what is your opinion of a city? What is your opinion of technology? What is progress? And you can think too about picturing the poem if it was to be made into a film. Think about MacCaig's language and how visual that is in the first stanza. Think about the sound effects in the second stanza, and you can think about the focus, the close focus on the theme or message in the final stanza.